I always thought betrayal would feel loud. A scream. A slap. Something cinematic. Instead, it arrived in silence, in a blue notification bubble that pulsed gently at the corner of my phone while I was debugging the authentication layer of Tyler's startup. Motion alert. Pine Ridge cabin. I frowned. The cabin had been empty since winter. Tyler and I hadn't even talked about going there. It was supposed to be our place, the only corner of the world that still felt untouched by pitched decks and venture capital greed. I tapped the alert. The video took a second to load. The buffering circle spun, as if the universe itself was hesitating, giving me time to change my mind. I didn't. The door opened. Tyler walked in first, shoulders relaxed, phone in hand. He looked happy. Not the strained founder version of him I'd been living with for months. This was the man I fell in love with. Then she stepped in behind him. Lauren Hale. My business partner. My reflection stared back at me from the dark screen of my laptop. I barely recognized her. Hollow eyes, lips parted in a silent question. I leaned closer to the phone, as if proximity could rewrite reality. Did you see her face when the board applauded you? Lauren said, laughing. She really thinks this company is hers too. Tyler chuckled. She's great with code. But vision? That's me. I swallowed so hard my throat burned. They dropped their bags on the kitchen table, the same oak table where I had once spread blueprints of my core system architecture, explaining how the modular dependencies could scale without bottlenecks. He'd kissed my forehead that night and told me I was a genius. Now he was pulling Lauren closer by the waist. She's still working late tonight, Tyler said. Probably rewriting the deployment script again. Lauren rolled her eyes. Perfect. Once the IP is filed under your name only, we won't need her anymore. The room tilted. What do you mean? Filed under your name only? I whispered to the empty office. She put all her trust in you, Lauren continued. She never checked the legal structure. Tyler shrugged. Why would she? She's in love with the idea of us. They kissed. I pressed my hand over my mouth. The air left my lungs like I'd been shoved underwater. My body slid from the chair to the floor, my back against the desk I'd practically lived at for the past 2 years. They weren't just cheating. They were erasing me. Lauren leaned back against the counter. After launch, we cut her loose. She'll be devastated. But what can she do? Her name won't be on anything. Tyler smirked. She'll land on her feet. She always does. The feed glitched. The cabin camera flickered as they walked deeper inside, out of frame. I stared at the frozen image of the empty doorway. The office smelled like cold coffee and overheating circuits. Outside, the city lights blurred through the rain-streaked windows. My hands were trembling so badly, I had to sit on them. I built everything, I said to no one. Every line of code. Every security protocol. Every architecture decision that made his startup valuable. And they were planning to cut me out like a disposable subroutine. Something inside my chest cracked, not loudly, but completely. It was the sound of a woman who had just realized that love had been the Trojan horse that let the enemy into her life. I stood up slowly. The girl who believed in us stayed on the floor. The strategist opened the master repository. The office was too quiet. Not peaceful. Not calm. Quiet the way a hospital room gets right before a doctor delivers bad news. I stood in front of the glass wall overlooking the sleeping city, my phone still clenched in my hand. The cabin camera feed had ended, but their voices kept replaying in my head like a corrupted audio loop. Once the IP is filed under your name only, we won't need her anymore. I walked back to my desk, every step deliberate, mechanical. My body felt detached from my mind, as if someone else had taken control of my motor functions while my heart stayed behind on the office floor, bleeding invisibly. The master repository was already open on my screen. Hundreds of directories, thousands of files, the skeletal system of everything Tyler had been bragging about to investors. My name was everywhere. I had hidden it in patterns only architects would notice. Naming conventions, logic sequences, optimization tricks that no bootcamp graduate could replicate. And yet, legally, none of that mattered. I clicked open the legal folder. There it was. The incorporation draft Tyler had asked me to review weeks ago. Just a formality, he'd said. My signature line was missing. His name filled every ownership field. You did this on purpose, I whispered. My phone vibrated. Tyler. I let it ring until the screen dimmed, then rang again. Finally, I answered. You're still at the office? He said. Yes, I replied. My voice surprised me. It sounded normal. Alive. You work too hard, he said softly. I miss you. A laugh rose in my throat, sharp and hysterical, but I swallowed it. I'm almost done polishing the architecture, I said. Your investors will love it. That's why I trust you, he replied. I don't know how I got so lucky. Lucky. After we hung up, I stared at the blinking cursor in the repository. Delete everything, a voice inside me whispered. Scorch the earth. But rage is loud, and loud things make mistakes. I needed silence. I needed strategy. I duplicated the entire project into an encrypted container only I controlled. Then another backup. Then a third. Each one stored in a different cold wallet server I had built years ago, back when paranoia was still called professionalism. My fingers moved faster, steadier, like they'd been waiting their whole lives for this moment. While the code copied, I opened the system architecture diagram, the original one I designed before Tyler even had a name for his company. I remembered sitting on the cabin floor with him that winter, drawing dependency chains on scrap paper while he watched me like I was performing magic. You're incredible, he'd said back then. I almost believed him. The progress bar reached 100%. I closed my eyes. This was the last moment I could still walk away. I didn't. Instead, I opened a single core file, the load balancing scheduler that handled peak traffic. And I added a ghost. Not a bug. Not a virus. A logic dependency so elegant it would pass every stress test, every audit, every demo. It would sleep peacefully until the public launch. Then, under real-world load, it would quietly unravel the entire system from the inside out. I leaned back in my chair, heart finally pounding again, but this time not with grief. With clarity. My phone buzzed with a message from Lauren. Just checking in. Tyler said you're saving the day again, 2 hearts. I typed a reply I never sent. Enjoy the cabin. It's the last thing you'll ever take from me. I closed my eyes and whispered. They think they erased me. Then I smiled into the dark office. They have no idea who they just woke up. By morning, I had slept exactly 17 minutes. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't want to. Sleep belonged to the woman who had trusted Tyler, who believed love could be version controlled. She was gone now, and I was afraid if I closed my eyes, I'd accidentally become her again. Sunlight crept through the blinds, slicing the office into gold and shadow. The city was waking up, unaware that a small apocalypse had already occurred inside me. At 7:03 a.m., my phone rang. Tyler. I answered on video, before I could change my mind. His face filled the screen, freshly shaved, hair still damp. He was smiling the way he did when he thought everything was going his way. You look exhausted, he said. I glanced at my reflection in the black glass behind my laptop. Dark circles framed my eyes like war paint. Pulled an all-nighter, I said. I didn't want anything to go wrong. He chuckled. That's my girl. What would I do without you? I held his gaze. I wondered how long he'd been able to say that without flinching. You'd figure it out, I replied. You always do. He frowned slightly, then shook it off. Hey, Lauren and I are heading to the cabin this weekend to shoot some promo footage. Wanna join us? The audacity was breathtaking. I can't, I said. Too much to finalize here. That's okay, he replied. We'll bring you back something from the bakery you love. I nodded, mute, while something ancient and predatory settled into place behind my ribs. After the call ended, I opened my personal contacts. Julian Sterling. I'd met him twice. Once at a tech summit, once when he'd toured our office pretending to be interested in Tyler's vision. But I had seen the way his eyes followed me instead, how he'd asked me the hard questions while Tyler babbled about brand identity. I typed a message. I have something you want, and something Tyler Thorne never deserved. His reply came less than a minute later. My office. 1 hour. The elevator ride to his building felt unreal. The woman stepping out into his marble lobby was not the one who had cried into a trash can hours ago. The receptionist looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, I said. But he's expecting me. Julian was standing by the windows when I entered his office, hands in his pockets, skyline blazing behind him like a kingdom he already owned. You look like you've been awake all night, he said. I have, I replied, and I'm done pretending it was worth it. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't. Instead, I placed the encrypted drive on his desk. That's the real architecture behind Thorntech, I said. Not the demo version. Not the investor fairy tale. The actual system. Julian raised an eyebrow. Why are you giving this to me? Because my ex is about to file the IP in his name only, I said. And because I'd rather burn my own cathedral down than let him pray in it. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Julian spoke. I don't just want your code, Cassidy. I lifted my chin. I want to watch you take his kingdom. The words didn't thrill me. They steadied me. We weren't partners yet, but the architect had officially gone to war. Julian didn't touch the encrypted drive right away. He walked back to the windows instead, staring down at the city like a general surveying terrain before a siege. I stood across from his desk, arms crossed tightly over my chest, trying to pretend I wasn't trembling inside. You know, he said at last, Tyler once told me he was the visionary behind Thorntech. I let out a humorless laugh. Then he doesn't know what a visionary looks like. Julian turned to me. You didn't come here just for revenge. I came here for justice, I said. Revenge is just the delivery system. He nodded slowly, then finally picked up the drive. You're aware this makes enemies, he said. I already have them, I replied. They just don't know it yet. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, Cassidy. I did. He plugged the drive into a secured terminal and scanned the file tree. His fingers moved fast, but not sloppy. He wasn't just a venture capitalist. He was a hunter. This is beautiful, he said under his breath. You modularize the transaction engine in a way that eliminates latency drift entirely. That problem was eating their system alive, I replied. They just didn't know it yet. Julian looked up at me. Why didn't you protect yourself legally? The question landed harder than he intended. Because I trusted him, I said. And I thought my work spoke louder than contracts. He closed the file browser. I've watched men build empires on the unpaid brilliance of women, he said. It never ends well for them. He slid the drive back across the desk. This stays with you. For now. I blinked. You're not taking it? Not until we finish something better, he said. I don't want Tyler's broken crown. I want to build the throne you deserve. A knot tightened in my chest. What are you proposing? I asked. 2 weeks, he said. My best engineers. Total confidentiality. You rebuild your system here. Clean, superior, unrecognizable. And when Tyler launches his stolen dream, he smiled faintly. We launch yours. The conference room became our war room. Whiteboards filled with dependency maps. Data models projected across glass walls. Julian's team was elite, ruthless in their precision, silent in their respect. They didn't question me. They followed. Late one night, after everyone had left, Julian poured 2 glasses of whiskey and set one in front of me. You haven't asked what I want in return, he said. I studied the amber liquid. You already told me. He leaned against the table. Partially. I want equity, yes. But more than that, I want you at the helm. I met his gaze. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. I know you didn't collapse when you were betrayed. You recalculated. For the first time since the cabin video, something warm flickered behind my ribs. Not hope, not love, but recognition. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Investor call went great. Couldn't have done it without you. I didn't reply. Instead, I raised my glass to Julian. To thrones, I said. He clinked his against mine. And to queens, he replied. And in that moment, the woman who had once begged to be seen finally realized she had never been invisible at all. The days blurred into algorithms and adrenaline. Julian's building became my second spine. I arrived before sunrise, left long after the cleaners had finished vacuuming the last traces of ambition from the carpets. His engineers watched me with a mix of awe and fear, not because I was loud, but because I was relentless. "This dependency chain is bloated," I said during our third architecture meeting. "We're eliminating it entirely." One of the senior devs hesitated. "That module controls user profiling." "No," I replied calmly. "It pretends to. It actually strangles throughput." Julian leaned back in his chair. "Do it her way." The room went silent. They learned quickly. By day 5, the system was no longer Tyler's shadow. It was something alive, adaptive, resilient, beautiful in its brutality. We weren't just rebuilding what he had tried to steal. We were making it obsolete. One night, Julian stopped by my workstation at nearly midnight. "You're rewriting your own work," he said. "I'm freeing it," I replied. I built that architecture while trying to make Tyler comfortable. This time, I'm not carrying dead weight. He studied me for a moment. "I've funded a lot of geniuses," he said. "None of them ever looked like this while creating." "Like what?" I asked without looking up. "Like you're finally allowed to be dangerous." I paused. Dangerous. I'd been called talented. Driven. Intense. Never dangerous. My phone lit up with a message from Lauren. "Tyler said you've been distant. Everything okay?" I stared at it until the letters blurred. "I used to believe sisterhood meant loyalty," I said quietly. Julian frowned. "What?" "I built half of her career," I continued. "And she helped him plan my erasure." He placed a hand on the back of my chair, not possessive, just present. "You don't owe them your silence." I finally looked up at him. "I don't owe them anything." The countdown to Tyler's launch was public now. Billboards. Interviews. A glossy website that looked like a startup's greatest hits playlist. "He's selling a dream that doesn't exist," one of Julian's engineers said. I smiled thinly. "It exists. Just not for him." The final test cycle passed with 0 critical faults. 0. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion crashing into me all at once. My hands were trembling again, not from grief this time, but from proximity to victory. Julian poured me another whiskey. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "I keep thinking about the cabin," I replied. "The table where they planned to erase me." He didn't interrupt. "I used to think revenge was about destruction," I continued. "But this feels like creation." He nodded. "True power doesn't burn. It replaces." Outside, the city shimmered with 1,000 unaware lives. Somewhere in one of those glowing windows, Tyler was probably rehearsing his pitch, Lauren perched beside him, smiling like she'd always belonged to my story. They had no idea that the system beneath their launch daydreams was already doomed. And I was no longer afraid of becoming the woman who ended them. The morning Tyler launched his masterpiece, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty. Not hollow, precise. Julian and I watched the live stream from his private conference room, the wall-sized screen glowing with Tyler's logo. The slogan pulsed in expensive animation, "Rewriting the future." Julian handed me a tablet. "Your platform is live the moment his collapses." I nodded. On screen, Tyler stepped onto the stage, applause roaring through the auditorium. Lauren sat in the front row, legs crossed, wearing the dress I once helped her pick out for investor meetings. "My partner Cassidy Vance couldn't be here today," Tyler said with a practiced smile. "But I owe her my gratitude." I didn't blink. The system clock ticked down in my head. 3, 2, 1. The first alert flashed on my tablet, internal latency spike. Tyler launched the live demo. "Watch how seamlessly our platform adapts to real-time user demand," he said. For 6 beautiful seconds it did. Then the architecture I had ghosted began to sing. The screen behind him froze. A murmur rippled through the crowd. His smile tightened. "Our servers are experiencing a minor." The backend fractured. Authentication loops spiraled. User sessions dropped like birds mid-flight. The live feed cut to the company logo, but it was too late. Investor dashboards were already lighting up with red error banners. Lauren stood up, whispering urgently to the man beside her. "Stay calm," Tyler said into his mic, though his eyes were wild. "This is just a temporary glitch." My tablet vibrated again. Julian's platform was now trending. He nodded to me. "Now." I tapped the screen. Our product went live. News feeds pivoted instantly. Headlines updated like dominoes falling. Sterling Tech delivers flawless alternative to failed launch. Tyler's phone was in his hand when the stage manager dragged him aside. He stared at it as if it had personally betrayed him. It rang. My name flashed across the auditorium screen in his reflection. I didn't answer. By the time the live stream cut, Julian's servers were handling traffic volumes Tyler's system had never survived even in simulation. Julian leaned back in his chair, watching the market graphs climb. "You didn't destroy him," he said softly. "You replaced him." My phone finally rang again. I answered. "What did you do?" Tyler hissed. "I finished my work," I replied. "You're sabotaging me," he said. I shook my head. "You sabotaged yourself the moment you decided I was disposable." Silence. Then Lauren's voice in the background, panicked. "Tyler, the board is pulling funding." He covered the mic. "Fix this, Cassidy," he begged. "Please." I closed my eyes, not in mercy, but in release. "There's nothing left for me to fix," I said. And I hung up. Julian studied me. "How do you feel?" I searched for the old ache. It wasn't there. "I feel accurate," I said. And accuracy, I realized, was my true revenge. The city didn't celebrate his collapse. It simply moved on. By the next morning, Tyler's name was already sinking beneath new headlines, new scandals, new miracles. Failure was not dramatic in the tech world. It was administrative. Julian's company, however, had exploded overnight. Our platform was everywhere. We sat in his penthouse office, watching market share tick upward like a heartbeat. "You're officially the most disruptive force in fintech this quarter," he said. "I didn't do this alone," I replied. He tilted his head. "You did the impossible part." My phone buzzed for the third time that hour. Blocked number. I didn't answer. I stood instead and walked to the window. The skyline stretched endlessly, a monument to ambition and heartbreak layered brick by brick. "They're going to come for me legally," I said. "They won't," Julian replied. "I've already retained a war team. You built everything in a personal sandbox long before Thorntech existed." I turned back to him. "You planned this." "I recognized genius when I saw it," he said. Protecting it was instinct. There was something in his voice that made the air shift. Later that night, after the final press call, Julian poured wine instead of whiskey. "You should go home," he said. "You haven't stopped in 2 days." "I don't know where home is anymore," I replied. He hesitated, then spoke softly. "Then stay." We sat across from each other at the long glass table, the city glittering beneath us. "You didn't ask why I trusted you so easily," he said. "I didn't need to," I replied. "You saw me before I asked to be seen." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, tentative, not claiming, just present. "I don't want to own you," he said. "I want to build with you." My chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with something dangerously close to hope. "I've spent years making myself smaller to keep men comfortable," I admitted. "I don't know how to be this." "Don't be anything," he replied. "Just be you." Outside, sirens wailed distantly. The world kept spinning. Inside, something fragile and luminous was beginning. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Tyler's voice came through, broken. "They froze my accounts." "I know," I said. "You ruined me," he whispered. "No," I replied gently. "You replaced me. I simply stopped letting you." I ended the call before he could say anything else. Julian watched me closely. "You okay?" I nodded, but tears finally slid down my cheeks. Not for Tyler, not for the betrayal, but for the woman I had been when I believed love required self-erasure. Julian stood and wrapped his arms around me. Not possessive. Protective. I leaned into him, letting the aftershocks settle. And in the ashes of everything I had lost, I felt something I had never truly known before. Not rescue. Partnership. The world didn't end when Tyler lost everything. Mine finally began. 3 weeks after launch day, I stood in front of a boardroom filled with faces that had once dismissed me as support talent. Now they were silent, waiting. Julian sat beside me, not at the head of the table, but level with my chair. Cassidy Vance will be taking the role of chief architect and co-founder, he said. This company moves at her pace. A ripple of surprise crossed the room. I didn't flinch. This platform is not a product, I said. It's an ecosystem. It will evolve only if we protect the people who build it. After the meeting, Julian caught my hand in the hallway. You are lethal in there, he said with a smile. I was honest, I replied. We didn't rush into love. We constructed it, like everything else that mattered. Late-night design sessions turned into quiet dinners. Quiet dinners turned into shared silences that didn't demand performance. He never asked me to shrink. Never mistook my intensity for inconvenience. One evening, we returned to Pine Ridge Cabin. Not for closure, for reclamation. The place was exactly as I'd left it. The oak table, the fireplace, the same wide windows that once framed betrayal. I don't need to be here, I said quietly. He squeezed my hand. Then we won't stay long. But I walked to the table anyway and placed my laptop down. This was where I was erased, I said. And this is where you rewrite, he replied. I opened a blank file. I typed my name into the header. For the first time, it felt permanent. Later, sitting on the porch as snow began to fall, Julian looked at me and said, I don't want to own your story. I leaned into him. Then walk it with me. His answer was a kiss, slow, steady, deliberate, like everything true. I had lost a man. I had lost a company. But I had found myself. And this time, no one would ever delete me again.